But I mean, the show is called Young and Naive. Is the new government young and naive?
The new government is young, probably as many young people are, is not naive.
All right, Young and Naive. We left Spain. We're in beautiful Italy. We're in Rome, and who's my first guest?
Sergio Fabbrini. I am an Italian. In Italy, sometimes you're supposed to have Italian. And I am the director of the School of Government, which is the most important graduate school in Italy, and one of the few in continental Europe. And we deal with political, policy, institutional, economic issues.
So, I mean, I want to talk about, because you're my first guest, about the political situation in Italy. How is the political situation in Italy?
As usual, the political situation in Italy is very interesting. And that means that we have a transformation of our political situation. A new government has entered with a young prime minister. Indeed, it is the youngest prime minister currently in Europe.
Who is it?
Is Matteo Renzi. He's a 38-year-old person. He was the mayor of Florence before becoming the prime minister, and he brought with him one of the youngest group of ministers. So we have a minister for institutional affairs, which traditionally was very for the old-fashioned politician. Now is the minister of foreign, is a wonderful woman of 32 years old.
Wow.
So, and we have a minister for foreign affairs. Traditionally, the Minister of Foreign Affairs was an establishment senior politician with a long tradition, and now we have a minister that is very young. She is 38, and she was one of our students. So, and so it can be interesting to see what this young politician can do for Italy.
But I mean, the show is called Young and Naive. Is the new government young and naive?
The new government is young, probably as many young people are, is not naive. They know much better than people of my age the real issue of the country. For example, we have an incredible high rate of unemployment. And so that means that we have to change our job market, because the job market in Italy has been done for people like me, of my age, to protect those who are insider in the job market, but not for the young people who are not the chance to enter in the job market. So this government is introducing a new law. It's called the Jobs Law, and this new law made much easier for young people to enter in the market. So they are not naive. It seems to me that they know what they have to do.
But why explain to us, why is it hard for young people to get a job in Italy? I mean, in Germany, the youth unemployment is very low, like 5–6%. How is it in Italy?
Because we have a legislation on job regulation, which oblige entrepreneur to give to the worker already in the job a lot of protection, and so to employ somebody is really very expensive. So many entrepreneurs don't want to employ new workers. So this new law made possible to employ worker, especially young worker, with less protection, but with the chance to give them a job. You have the mini job in your country, in which young people can enter in the job, stay for a while, get some money, and then look around. We didn't have something like that in Italy. So the mini job area, which doesn't mean necessarily that we have to be paid less and less, but you have the chance to enter, has been very limited in this country, where the trade union traditionally protected only the senior worker, but they are very expensive, very costly. So that kind of labor force is not adaptive. Right. Is not so where the young people are much more flexible. They want to stay for a period, then they want to change. And so this is a government that tried to open up in some way. It is in the road of Schroeder reform of the first half of the 2000 is to make the labor market more flexible.
But I mean, Schroeder was criticized for having a neoliberal agenda, and neoliberalism is like, well, let's make it easier for people to get hired and fired. Is it that way?
Yes, I think that the neoliberal agenda in your country made also Germany able to be competitive, and that capacity to be competitive in Germany meant also that Germany now has a growing economy. If you have a very rigid labor market, it is very difficult to be competitive because there is no possibility of flexibility to change the kind of skills that you need and so forth. So I think the right, because this is a left government in Italy.
It's a left government doing neoliberal reforms?
The prime minister is a left government in a coalition government with the right, but because he's a left government politician, he's a left government prime minister, I think the aim is to introduce some, let's say, neoliberal reform in the labor market, but with new form of guarantee. For example, there is a discussion of guaranteeing a minimum wage to all the young people working in the labor market, but also to guarantee a minimum wage also for the unemployed. At the same time, if you are unemployed, you get some money at the same time, but you have to learn another skill. So you don't stay idle in the sidewalk,
right.
but you try to adapt to the new transformation. So the government tried to make the labor market more, let's say, in tune with the transformation of the labor force.
But I mean, the Schröder Agenda 2010 also made rise to the, how do you say, like low paid jobs. Like we didn't have that much before. Now like 20% of German workers are in a low pay sector. Is that what Italy wants? Like you have a job but you get a very little pay?
Well, of course, necessarily a low-paid job is not the outcome, but the Schröder reform, it seems to me, create a condition for your country for making your economy more flexible.
But people don't earn more. That's the problem.
Yes.
The economy is doing great or better and better, but the workers are not.
Yeah, but we have one of the low rate of unemployment. So this is a trade-off. If you want to be competitive, you have to find some way of making the labor market more flexible. Anyway, it's not a question of evaluation. It's that the question Italy has roughly 40% of young people unemployed in this 40% 40 in the southern region, and we have around 25% overall in the country. So give them a chance to work is probably more important than anything else. And once you are in the labor market, you can find many ways for increasing your, let's say, strength and power relation. Okay. So a country cannot survive with an entire generation of young people outside of any occupation. This is something impossible.
So let's focus more on the political situation. Okay. Tell us first about the new government. What party is it from? You said left. Tell about Renzi's party. So
Renzi is the leader. Has become the leader of the Democratic Party, which is the most important party in Italy. Is a left party. Is part of the European Democrats and Socialists. Is supporting Martin Schulz for the presidency of the Commission. And this party is a party that traditionally belonged to the communist tradition.
Communist?
So it was the previous communist party that changed name several times, but it was always led by communist leader or post-communist leader. Wow. So Matteo Renzi is the first leader of the Democratic Party that, for generational reason, did not belong to that tradition. He is too young for having been part of the Communist Party or the Christian Democratic Party of the Cold War period, and he has a completely different outlook. And so he is really a completely new politician. So the Matteo Renzi raised some of the issue that this country should have raised before, but it never did. Namely, that this country cannot be governed with an institutional system that was tailored for the period of the Cold War. What does it mean that? In Italy, we had a huge divide between communists and anti-communists for more than 40 years. Okay, Germany was divided within the country. We were on the border of the division. Okay, so Italy was the most eastern country of the Western Bloc, with the strongest communist party in the Western world. So the solution was to create a very Baroque and Byzantine institutional system that made possible that none of the parties could win the election because both
by themselves.
By themselves. So the anti-communists and the communists
always had to work together.
Or to find some compromise, to find some consociation, as we used to see.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad, but that means that in order to take a decision, you have to wait for months and months and months. So that system could have worked, and it worked during the Cold War period. Italy did not collapse as Greece, for example, in a civil war. We became a very pacific country. We civilized. The communists reduced their own impact in the Italian politics. They became social democrats. So the fascists evolved in direction of neoconservative positions. So Italy was a successful story. We didn't collapse, and everybody thought that we were there, exactly on the brink of collapsing, and we didn't collapse. However, after the Cold War, that system was out of tune. We needed to take decisions. So if you have two chambers, and the government need to have the confidence of both chamber. That means you get the confidence in one chamber, then you go to the other chamber, but the other chamber say, no, I am not in favor of this point, so you have to go back to the other chamber, and then you have to, we call that the ping-pong legislation, okay?
Is it like the American system where the Senate passes something and the House of Representatives is like, no.
But the Senate and the House do not need to give the confidence to the President. The President is elected by an electoral college, independently from the Senate and the House. We are like your system, but in your system, only the Bundestag has the confidence vote with the Chancellor, not with the government. So the Bundestag vote down the Chancellor in Germany, but the Bundesrat has no role at all in confidence relation with the Chancellor. So once Angela Merkel gets the support of the Bundestag, she does not need to have also the support of the Bundesrat. Of course, she needs to have, make coalition building, because in the Bundesrat there are representatives of the Länder that have different view than the Chancellor, but that is a part of the coalition building. Is not a necessity. So in Italy, this double bicameral, we call perfect bicameralism, obliged the government to a long drawn process of negotiation. So you arrive to have the law when the problem has disappeared, okay? But of course, in the previous period, that was good, because it's better not to take decision than to take wrong decision, because if you take wrong decision, then the communists are in the street, or if you take another wrong decision, you have the anti-communists in the street. So in that case, it worked, but now it can no longer work.
So let's say there's a problem, the government has a solution, it goes to the parliament, and then it takes a while, and then the problem is already something different.
Or the problem has become worsened, and then
and the solution doesn't even fit the problem.
Exactly. So that was the Italian question. But I want to say to a European audience that this is not because the Italians are anthropological, something wrong in their own anthropology. It's that Italy had to build that system in order to tame this incredible cleavage, the communist, anti-communist. In the Western Germany, you put immediately out of law the neo-Nazis, the post-Nazis, and then immediately after that, you put out of law the Communist Party. So in Western Germany, the, let's say, right-wing electorate moved towards the Christian Democrats, and the extreme left-wing electorate moved towards the Social Democrats. Then arrived the Green, but in a way, you have a kind of two and half party system. In Italy, that was impossible, because the Communist Party was instrumental for bringing Italy back to democracy. So the resistance was made basically by the Communist Party. So you couldn't put the Communist Party out of law. But at the same time, the Communist Party was connected to the Soviet Union. So what do? So you have a legitimated political party that cannot sit around the table of the government, because in the government you were discussing about military affairs, NATO belonging, and then you might not have a communist minister connected to the Soviet Union. So it was a very complicated system. Please.
But in these days, Germany, you can't really tell apart what the Social Democrats want and Merkel's party wants. They're almost in a way the same, what they do. I mean, they say something different all the time, but in the end, what they do is almost the same. Is it in Italy?
Yes, I think this is all the Eurozone area. So today we have the fact that we have a common currency, a single currency, the euro. We are pushed towards let's say, options that are very close. There are what we call externalities. So every country should reduce public debt. So you might have a discussion between left and right on where do we cut? Do we cut the military, or do we cut the public transportation on public system?
Or raise taxes.
Or raise taxes. But there, the options are very limited. And that, I think, is one of the mistakes, in my view, of the Eurozone institutional architecture that made left and right debate insignificant. So the only alternative to this kind of convergence between left and right is the anti-European mood. So what you have today, for example, the next election in May 25th for the European Parliament, you have a large coalition of parties in favor of Europe, but with limited differences between them, and then you have a coalition, 1/3, let's say, of the members of the Parliament constituted by parties very different between themselves, but against Europe. So that is not good.
They're against Europe or the euro?
Against Euro and against Europe.
Why?
So, for example, Marine Le Pen is against Euro, but also against Europe because she won't go back.
She's a nationalist.
She's a nationalist. The same is Farage in the UK Independent Party, is a nationalist. The Italian Northern League is a Heimat perspective. And then you have, many parties, or in Hungary or in the Czech Republic, you have an increasing number of nationalistic, let's say, mood.
Right.
Why that?
Right.
So here is the German responsibility. Germany never understood, at least the current leadership, never understood that this kind of approach to the Eurozone based on fixed rule with the intergovernmental coordination, so the decision regarding budgetary policy, fiscal policy, are basically taken by the European Council and the Council of Ministers.
Not by the government.
Not by the European, without a serious involvement by the European Parliament. So the decisions are taken within this club of leaders, without any checks and balances, any accountability towards the European Parliament, made the system so hierarchical that the largest country, Germany in particular, has become necessarily the hegemonic country in Europe. But that cannot work, because Europe should be based on equal relation between member states, not on a hierarchical relation. I do understand that in the short run, this intergovernmental approach works in favor of Germany or in favor of France, or tomorrow might work in favor of other larger countries. But in the long run, this is against German interests, because Germany has a future if it's a European Germany, but a Europe which becomes a German Europe has no future at all.
So what kind of elections are these now? I mean, they talk about, well, we're gonna they say you can vote for the president of the EU Commission, but in the end you vote for the EU Parliament. But as you said, the EU Parliament almost doesn't have a power. I mean, why do they keep pretending, obviously, that the European Parliament is something important? At the same time, the European Council, Merkel and Hollande and Renzi could veto
exactly. That is, everything. For example, take an example. Why we have an intergovernmental treaty called Fiscal Compact. Why we didn't pursue a budgetary fiscal policy through the community system, through the supranational organizations, through the interplay between Commission, Parliament and Council. We had a Fiscal Compact, which is an intergovernmental treaty. I do understand that through the intergovernmental treaty, the Merkel government could neutralize the, let's say, the supervision by the German Constitutional Court, because that is an intergovernmental treaty, is not part of the community law. So the Constitutional Court of Karlsruhe cannot enter in the question as it entered for other issues, like the Maastricht Treaty, for example. But that is not the solution. Can resolve some of the German problem, but create larger question for Europe. So Europe should stop of making intergovernmental policy. intergovernmental treaty.
And make politics in the European Parliament.
And bring the Parliament in. I mean, I think that the European Council is important because Europe is constituted by state, but Europe is also constituted by citizens, and we have to keep on balance. States and citizens. If we consider only states and we forget citizens, we will have a disaster. Exactly the reverse. If we consider only citizens and we forget states, we will have another disaster. So the real politician, the guy that thinks to the next generation, should have the courage to call into question this institutional architecture and to go back to a federal approach to Europe that might balance citizen and state.
So basically, you say we need a new European Union or new
exactly.
new treaty.
We need a new treaty. We need a new treaty, and I think that Germany should have the national interest in promoting a new treaty for rebalancing what is going on. I went to Athens a few days ago to give a lectio magistralis to an audience for the European Union future. And it is incredible for me to see that there are Angela Merkel picture with a mustache on the road. That is a danger. That we have to stop this kind of, because we cannot play the game that the Southern European are lazy, the German are egoist, and so this stereotype transform in incredible way the cultural climate of Europe. We have to go back to the basic principle. We stay together, not necessarily because we love each other, but we stay together because we don't want anymore to fight as we did in the past.
But I mean, I also learned once that once you have power or the most power, you're not really willing to be like, okay, I'm gonna give up some power.
Yes.
So I mean, as you say, Germany is probably the most powerful country in Europe.
Yes.
What should be their interest? What should we tell them to be like? Okay, we need to give up some power.
Well, I think that in the case of Germany, because I'm talking about Germany, but also Italy has a strong responsibility as well, okay? In the case of Germany, the national interest of Germany is to make clear with the other European countries that Germany is as the other European countries. He has nothing to sermonize. Germany cannot have this approach to teach something always to somebody, okay? So Helmut Kohl knew that Germans were not happy in giving up to the Deutschmark, but he did. And he said, this is good for us, although public opinion...
In the long run.
In the long run. Although public opinion in the short run was against the giving up to the Deutschmark. So what I expect from Angela Merkel is to say, probably now we benefit from this situation. But that might create a hierarchical Europe that in the long run might work against us, because then we will have an anti-German coalition, which is a nightmare in my view. At the same time, Southern European, like Italy, should consider that their own trouble do not come from Germany. They come from their own mistakes, because the Italian public debt is an Italian responsibility. It's not a German responsibility. You cannot transfer to Germany the responsibility of Italian clientelism, or Italian corruption, of Italian incapacity to take decisions. So what we need to have political elite in each of the member states to understand the long-run interest of people like you and the young people who are witnessing this transmission.
And in the end, you mentioned disaster. Tell me about Berlusconi's party.
Berlusconi party is an example of that disaster. So Berlusconi now is playing the card, the anti-German card, which is meaningless. Say, I was pushed out of the government in 2011 because the German, Merkel in particular, did not like me.
Is he still running?
He doesn't run, but he's still the leader of the Go Italy party.
But I thought he's a criminal. Why isn't he in jail?
But he is in the television. No, he's doing a civil service, a kind of security, a kind of civil service with old people and sick people. But he's always in the television because he talk, he speak, and he say, no, we want a Europe without the domination of Germany, which is meaningless. If Italy is in this trouble, it's not because of Germany, it's because he governed for 20 years and he left a country with 132% of public debt vis-à-vis GDP. So 132%, where the Maastricht Treaty would have imposed a 60% of GDP, of public debt vis-à-vis the GDP. So why Italy spends so much? For what? So that is the responsibility that Berlusconi should, instead of to say, is Merkel's responsibility, he has to say, why I fail. But of course he doesn't. So Renzi in that sense is a good attempt to say, I am out of that business. These people are all of them responsible for the situation in Italy. I want to start a new page. And I want to have good relation with Germany, but I want, as you do with friends, you say to friends when you think they go wrong. And you have to say to Germany that Germany should change the approach to European Union. But at the same time, I have the legitimacy to say that if I do the same job in my country.
So you can't say one thing and do the other.
Exactly.
So I mean, and one more thing, there was Berlusconi Party, the Lega Nord you mentioned Renzi. What do we need to know about Grillo?
Well, Grillo is an example of that. Grillo is an anti-system party. Is one of the
anti-system or new system?
No, it's an anti-system. It doesn't want to make this system work. Is the expression of a recurrent stream in Italian politics, which is populism. I, as a scholar, as a public intellectual, I am always fear about populism in this country because populism brought Mussolini to power. Populism is always there in this country for many reasons that I cannot explain now.
But is it right-wing or left-wing?
Is against one and the other. Is populism. Populism is the people against the elite, against the state, against Europe. So is not left, is not right. Is just it tried to collect the malaise, the insatisfaction of both the left and the right electorate. So if you look at the last poll say, what do you think are the most important causes of Italian problem? The banking sector, not too much. Not too much. The financial policy, not too much. The European Union, not too much. And then the following sentence: the political class. 42% of Italians say is the political class. So he played the game of I am the anti-establishment. But then
I'm not like the others.
I am not like the others. Then you get 28% of the vote, 25% of the vote. And what do you do with that 25% of the vote? You keep the vote in the refrigerator? Or what do? You have no program, you have no idea. So this is a dangerous question. My opinion is that they will enter in the European Parliament and they will not have any serious effect, even because the anti-European in the European Parliament are divided within themselves. There is nothing common between Grillo and Farage.
Because the nationalists, why should they work together?
They are, both of them are nationalists, and so this is they will make them less effective than people expect. But this is a serious question. So we have to change Europe in order to reduce the appeal of those who say we have to transform everything. We are against this Europe. We are against this kind of integration without knowing the implication of that, which means a serious, again, division between North and South and member state of the European Union. We have to stop that.
But is it possible that Grillo will be part of the Italian government at some point?
None, because none other country, none other party want to coalition with him, and he doesn't want to make coalition with others. So he has no sufficient number for making the government by himself. So it will be the anti-system party, the party that within the parliament will make anything difficult. Right. But that is because he play on the fact that there are 40% of young people unemployed in the southern region. 20% of the young people don't find a serious job. This kind of austerity policy is bringing Italy to its knees. It cannot work. We have to, if we reduce public debt at the national level, we should have growth policy at the European level. We should have a parliament and a council making growth policy, infrastructure, public education, digital roads, and that require budget. So this time, for the very first time, they even reduced the budget of the European Union to less than 1%.
Don't you learn at school? I learned Keynes at school, where it says like when there's a boom period, you cut debt and you can do austerity, but in a recession you invest and you...
Yeah, but of course we cannot invest because we have already a huge public debt. Keynes was writing in a period in which the public debt was 30%, 40%. So now we have 132%. So,
but there's no maximum. I mean...
Yes, of course, but because we share a common currency, we cannot increase our public debt because our public debt then will cost German. So the question is that we have to reduce the public debt at the national level. But we have to check this reduction of public debt at the national level with an investment at the European level. That is the road. So we need a European Parliament, a European Council, introducing new policy, train connection that pass across several member states of the European Union, a European system of new research and technology that can involve several member states of the European Union, but that require a fiscal capacity by the European Union to have autonomous resources for making those investments. But if the budget of the European Union is based on transfer from member state to Brussels, it is obvious that Germans resent, the Finnish resent that I don't want to give my money to the European. But if you have taxes,
European taxes,
you have European taxes on activity that are possible thanks to the market, to the common market, then it is not a physical transfer of money from my pocket to Brussels, but it's just to take the necessary resource out of the activity made possible by the integration.
Right.
So in that sense, the European Parliament should have a fiscal capacity, limited fiscal capacity. Economists talk about 2-3% of the public expenditure at the European level for making those investments that can help Southern European young people from Spain to Greece, something connected to tourism, what else?
Right.
Education. Right. So you reduce the public expenditure in Italy, but you increase and you check through Europe. But that requires politicians with a vision, and that is what we need.
Does Italy have a politician with a vision? The last question.
My last question is that I think a young 38 prime minister is a good chance for getting a vision, because at that age you look forward. When you are old, you look backward.
So you hope he has a vision, or does he?
I hope. I think he has, and I think that we have to help him. I hope the German government will help him, the French government will help him. But I think that at 30 years old, it is necessarily oriented to have a vision.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.